Just a few hours outside of India's bustling capital, New Delhi, there's a completely different world. It's a place where, in a cluster of villages, sex work isn't just some hidden occupation. For many people there, it's a family tradition, it's a means of survival, and it's a practice with roots that go way, way back into the age-old caste system. This quote from a young woman named Anita, well, it cuts right to the heart of the matter. Look, this isn't some abstract social issue we're talking about. It's a story about real people, about families, and about the absolutely desperate choices they feel they have to make when they're faced with crushing poverty. So, to really get this, we've got to start with the personal stories. We need to look at the economic reality that pushes these women into the profession and what that money actually allows them to do for their families. Let's go back to Anita. And we should say, at her request, we've changed her name. She is the one and only provider for her entire family. She told us she chose this path about 3 years ago, basically following in her aunt's footsteps. Her clients, they're often truck drivers or migrant workers just passing through on the highway. Now, this is a really critical piece of the puzzle. Anita earns around 70,000 rupees a month. That's about 750 euros. Now, for a family that was, before this, literally starving with no other way to make money, this amount is completely life-changing. And the impact of that income, it's just staggering. Think about this. In just 3 years, she managed to pay off her family's entire debt of 1,000 euros. For Anita, sex work wasn't just a job. It was the only path she could see to get her family out of debt. And Anita's story, well, it's not a one-off. This is Rajna. She started doing sex work when she was only 15. She saw it as the only way to stop her younger siblings from having to beg for food on the streets. She decided, right then and there, she would become the breadwinner to save them all. But here's the thing. This isn't just about individual choices. Not at all. It's a systemic issue, a cycle that's held in place by both modern debt and a long, painful history. Okay, so here's the trap they're in. Banks just don't see sex work as a real job, so forget about getting a loan. This forces families to go to local lenders who then charge these insane interest rates. It just makes them poorer and ensures that the debt and the need to do this work gets passed down from one generation to the next. So you might be wondering, who are these communities exactly? Well, they belong to traditionally nomadic tribes like the Nuts and the Buriya, and they've always been at the absolute bottom of India's caste system. And before they were driven into sex work, their whole heritage was about performance. They were incredible dancers, jugglers, and magicians. And the stigma they deal with today, man, it has some deep, deep roots. Back in 1871, the British colonial government passed something called the Criminal Tribes Act. It officially branded these groups as criminals just because they were nomadic. And even though that act was repealed after India got its independence, the stereotype just stuck. It's made it almost impossible for them to find other kinds of work. And that history isn't just history, it has devastating real-world consequences right now. As this man explains, people from his community are discriminated against every single day. They're seen as outcasts, they can't get jobs, and their kids are ostracized in school, all because of a label that was slapped on their ancestors more than 100 years ago. But inside this really oppressive system, something fascinating and totally unexpected has happened. The economics of this whole situation have completely flipped traditional gender roles on their head. Okay, so in most of India, right, society is deeply patriarchal. The men are the ones who make the money. But here, it's the complete opposite. The women are the primary breadwinners. And with that economic power comes social power. They are the ones who call the shots, and they get a huge amount of respect inside their families. So what about the men? What do they do? Well, a lot of them take on the roles that women traditionally would. They do the housework, they raise the kids, and they help the family's economy by supporting the women, which sometimes means acting as pimps. It's a total reversal of the norm. But, and this is a huge but, we have to be crystal clear about something. This financial independence and this social power, they come at an incredible and often brutal cost. The dangers of this work are severe, and the human toll is just immense. It's the question we have to ask, right? Beyond the money, beyond the social dynamics, what is the day-to-day reality for these women really like? I mean, the scale of this is just mind-boggling. There are an estimated 3 million sex workers in India, and the vast majority are young, mostly between 15 and 35. We're not talking about a small, isolated issue. This is a nationwide reality. And the dangers are constant. They're real. Rashna remembers a client in Mumbai who not only refused to pay her, but beat her so badly and then stole her clothes, leaving her completely humiliated. This is the kind of abuse and violence that is a constant threat in their lives. And it's not just the violence. The health risks are just as severe. Sexually transmitted diseases are a life and death reality. One woman, Sanada, tragically lost her only daughter, who was also a sex worker, to an illness that was almost certainly an STD. The cost, literally, can be their lives. So, after all that, is there any way out? Is there any hope for change? Is there a way to break this cycle? For the next generation, a lot of people believe the answer comes down to one really powerful tool: education. And here's how it's starting to happen. Some NGOs are supporting local teachers, people like Gudu Nagar, who's actually from one of these communities himself. He teaches the kids basic grammar and literacy, giving them the fundamental skills they need to even imagine a different kind of future. And you know what? It's actually working. These aren't just pipe dreams. These are real success stories. One girl managed to join the police force. Another family has children who are studying to become doctors and lab technicians. And here's the most important part. In the families where the kids get an education, the women no longer have to work as sex workers. The cycle gets broken. And really, it all comes down to this: the dream of a young girl named Nancy. She's not dreaming about following in her mother's footsteps just to survive. She's dreaming of flying, of becoming an air hostess. Education has given her the freedom to have a dream that is entirely her own. And that leaves us with one final, pretty powerful question. When you're up against history, poverty, and stigma, can the dreams of a new generation, empowered by education, finally be enough to break a cycle that has lasted for centuries? The signs of hope are definitely there, but the challenge is still immense.